All right, let's jump right in. For a long time, there's been this huge, optimistic idea in economics. If you connect all the world's financial systems and let money flow freely, well, everybody gets richer. It sounds simple, right? A clear path to prosperity, especially for developing countries.
And this wasn't just some fringe idea. This was the mainstream economic theory. As the economist Maurice Obstfeld put it, an open system is just plain better. This became the playbook for policies all over the world, promising growth to any country that was willing to open up.
So let's call this the promise. It was this powerful vision that really guided economic thinking for decades, particularly in places like Latin America, starting way back in the 80s. The logic seemed rock solid. Open your doors and development will follow.
But that brings us to a much more turbulent reality. If the promise was so simple, what actually happened when countries took the leap? When Latin America opened up its financial borders, did everything go according to plan?
Yeah, not exactly. In fact, what followed was just one storm after another. Instead of smooth sailing, the region got slammed by a series of massive financial crises. You had Mexico in '94, Brazil in '98, Argentina in 2000, one after the other. It was this huge puzzle. The very medicine that was supposed to make these economies stronger seemed to be making them incredibly sick. And that sets up the central mystery we're going to unravel in this explainer. Why did the cure seem to be part of the disease? Now, to solve this thing, we've got to start by agreeing on what a healthy financial system even looks like.
You'll hear economists talk about financial development. But what does that really mean? It's not just about how much money is sloshing around. It's really a measure of how good a country's financial system, its banks, its markets, is at doing its core jobs.
So what are those jobs? Well, you can think of it like a 5-point checklist. A healthy system has to be good at finding the best places to invest money. It needs to make sure that money is actually being used wisely. That's corporate governance. It also has to help people manage risk, pool savings together for big projects, and of course, make it super easy to buy and sell stuff. That's our gold standard.
Okay, back to our mystery. Some really fascinating research from the economist Edgar Demetrio Tovar raises a key question. What if the problem isn't globalization itself? What if we've been using that one word to describe a bunch of totally different things?
So let's meet our three main suspects. First up, you have financial openness. This is basically the rule book, the actual laws a country puts on the books to let foreign money in. Second, you have capital flows. This is the traffic, the real measurable amount of money zipping across the border. And third, financial integration. Think of this as the connection, how in sync a country's financial heartbeat is with the rest of the world. Three very different concepts, but we call them all globalization.
All right, we've got our suspects lined up. Now it's time to put the evidence on trial. The Tovar study did exactly this, digging into the data for 19 Latin American countries to see what effect each of these three faces of globalization really had. So suspect number one, the rule book, or financial openness. The evidence here is pretty straightforward. Just changing the laws to be more open, it had a clear positive effect. More credit, better corporate governance, better risk management. So far, so good. The theory holds up. But now let's look at the traffic, the actual flow of capital. And this is where our story takes a sharp turn. Sure, more money meant more credit for businesses, which is good. But, and this is a big but, it had a negative impact on corporate governance and on mobilizing savings. And here is a huge clue in our mystery. The study found that a flood of easy money actually made corporate oversight weaker. How could that be? Well, one theory is that when cash is cheap and plentiful, investors just don't feel the need to watch companies like a hawk. This is a critical piece of the puzzle.
So let's bring in our final suspect, the connection, or financial integration. And wow, the results here are like night and day. When a country's financial system was truly connected and moving in sync with the global market, the effect was overwhelmingly positive. Better credit, better governance, more savings, better risk management, a nearly clean sweep. So, after looking at all the evidence, it's time for the final verdict. What really drove financial development in Latin America? And which type of globalization was the hero and which was the villain? The results, when you see them like this, are striking. Capital flows by themselves, a really mixed bag and even harmful in some ways. Financial openness, just changing the rules, was helpful, for sure. But the most powerful, positive force by a country mile, financial integration. It's not even close. And this gets us to the absolute heart of the matter. The key takeaway is this.
The type of globalization matters so much more than the amount. Just opening the floodgates and letting capital pour in isn't the magic bullet. In fact, it can backfire. What really moves the needle is building a deep, high-quality connection to the global system.
Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question for any developing country today. If you're a policymaker, what's the right move?
The research leaves us with a really tough but important dilemma. If deep integration is the goal, but a sudden flood of capital can cause chaos, does that mean a country needs to build a really strong, stable financial system at home first, before it fully opens up to the world? It's a critical question, and it suggests that the real path to prosperity isn't a single big leap, but maybe a much more careful, step-by-step journey.